about that subject. we lay our chalice today, mindful of the words of Albert Schweitzer, who writes, "At times our own light goes out and is rekindled by a spark from another person. Each of us has cause to think with deep gratitude of those who have lighted the flame within us." We are here, drawn from many different places. We are here, each of us at different stages of our life journeys. We are here, and we each look at life and death in different ways, speaking diverse dialects of spirit. And yet today we share one thing in common. At one point or another, and to small degree or large, our lives have touched the life of Tim Wilson. And so we are here, having turned aside from our accustomed ways to honor Tim's life, whose death has cut across all the paths we walk. We come together to confront one of the great facts of this life, which is death. The death of one we've known always does several things. There's a sense of loss, for one we've known and loved is no longer with us. Death also reminds us of our own mortality. We too must die, and we do not know how or when. And then too, death is the ultimate mystery, a time at which we return to the elements from which life has arisen. We never really know the full results of our lives, nor do we ever come to be absolutely certain with regard to the purpose of this life. And yet all of us, as we live, also build a place for ourselves in the future of humanity. We live on in everything we have ever done and said, in every cause we've championed, in every work of creativity and kindness. Whenever death cuts across life, we are left with a certain incompleteness. We know that much is left unfinished, unfulfilled, unsaid. There are yet other things we wish to share, and now cannot. But what has been must suffice. It is good to be together now. We need one another. It's good to remember, with smiles and laughter as well as with tears, the person Tim was, how he filled our world and brightened our days. Healing the hurt begins with remembering. Our memories of Tim can never be taken from us. So today we grieve Tim's death. And though our grief is strong and we must mourn, we will not let the shadow of death obscure the living person who touched us many times in many ways, filling our lives with memories and meaning and love. Let us be wise enough and let us be brave enough today to honestly remember and celebrate Tim's life. Tim was born in 1954 in Anderson, Indiana, 40 miles northeast of Indianapolis. His parents, Cecil and Betty Wilson, ran a building supply business out of their family home. His father had been a brick mason, and the business specialized in bricks, but also windows and sliding doors, sales, deliveries, and installations. Tim's dad was in charge of the hands-on side of the business. His mother worked in the office, answering the phone and keeping the books. Tim grew up with 3 brothers and 3 sisters. They all helped around the house and the business. When they were old enough, they could earn 25 cents an hour, stacking bricks or lending a hand with their father's deliveries. That was good money for a kid. but Tim often preferred to ride his bike around the neighborhood and play. Of all of them growing up, Tim was probably closest to his brother Jim, who was just 11 months younger than Tim. They stuck together a lot in Cub Scouts and Little League and getting into all sorts of mischief together. They both played in the school band and got matching motorcycles when they were in their teens. When he was 15, Tim worked at a local drive-in fast food place as a car hop, which is how he managed to save enough money for that motorbike. Tim was always a strong-minded kid, and he had a bit of a temper. In high school, he was a rebel. He let his hair grow long, or at least longer than his teachers thought was appropriate, and he grew a mustache. The drums he played in the school band were now put to good use in the rock band he joined, and he liked to wear big flashy chains and medallions around his neck, already imagining himself a rock star. His high school nickname was Medallion. He was a bright kid, interested in learning and good at math. He got good grades when he applied himself, and if his teachers didn't give him a hard time about his hair. In his senior year, his choice of clothing and hairstyle were all clear violations of the dress code at the time. But Tim stuck to his guns. He wouldn't cut his hair or shave his mustache, even when he was suspended. And the school refused to include his photo in the yearbook. It was during these years that Tim lived in a commune with other like-minded, long-haired friends who at the time were called hippies, or Jesus freaks. He graduated high school in 1972 and then moved on to Indianapolis, where he worked at Best Lock Machine Shop. In the late 70s, he worked for contractors to the Army, learning computer languages and programming. He was always fascinated with numbers and computers. He knew he would get a better job with a college degree, and so he started taking classes when he wasn't working. He completed a degree in computer science from the Indiana University in Bloomington in 1986. After graduation, he worked for several different computer-related companies throughout the Midwest, from Indianapolis to Cincinnati, from Montgomery, Alabama to O'Fallon, Illinois. Between his various jobs, Tim often took several months off. That was his pattern, that was his style. He was quite content to be unemployed and to live off his savings. Tim first moved to California in 1995 when he got a job here in Monterey with Antium Corporation at the Navy. He worked there 2 years and then moved on to Lockheed in Sunnyvale. Over the next few years, he moved back and forth between these employers, and in 2000 moved on to a software company in Cupertino. When up in the Bay Area, Tim lived with his sister Sue and her husband Mike, who had a home in Union City, just north of Fremont. The next year, he moved back to Monterey and lived in Marina, where he worked for Northrop Grumman at the Navy here. In 2004, Tim's mother died, so he moved to Florida, where his parents had retired, to help his father. And while he was down there, he worked at a Home Depot hot dog stand as a food vendor at special events, a man of many trades. In 2006, he came back to Marina and lived mostly on his savings until they ran out a few years later. He was finished with computer programming work, but he was very busy always nonetheless. He joined this church and our social justice initiatives. He was a passionate Green Party member with strong opinions about capitalism. He was active in Occupy Monterey and became a founding member of Time Bank, an organization that matches people's needs with those who can help. Around the church, Tim often helped others with one-time activities such as moving without worrying about being paid. He was also a regular at our monthly men's breakfast group. Tim made a lot of friends here at the church and around town. He was the kind of person who would do anything for a friend. It's true, he had a temper. He could get fired up and confrontational. But he also had a very large heart. He could be gruff and cantankerous, and he could be very sensitive and sweet. In recent years, Tim's health became more of a concern, especially his heart. He had a heart valve replacement in fall of 2015, and he suffered various complications from that surgery, including another hospitalization in 2016. Lately, he was talking about plans to move to Northern California and buy a house. That was his dream. He dreamed of living up there in the woods, getting by with very little money, and enjoying the beauty of nature. And then, on a Sunday evening in mid-July, actually was helping out some friends, he suddenly fell ill. Later that week, he finally went to the hospital. But despite all the efforts to help him, his health declined quickly. The following Saturday already, from Sunday to Saturday, he passed away, peacefully, with friends at his side. Though he was taken from us much too suddenly and much too soon, our memories of Tim will remain with us. And some of his brothers will now share some of their memories with the rest of us.
My name's Jim. Yes, I'm 11 months younger than Tim, and I was probably the one that spent the most time with Tim from early childhood till the end of high school. In the beginning, my parents named Tim and I the wrecking crew. They would tear up anything. And later on, my parents handed us our toys, which we looked at and said, "What's wrong with these? They're all destroyed." I said, "Yes, you destroyed them." But Tim and I did many things together. What he did, I wanted to do. What I did, he wanted to do. We just almost stuck together like twins. But we was active in Cub Scouts, Boy Scouts, Little League, baseball. In school, we were in band. Something else some other instrument that Tim played was a clarinet, and he played it very well. But mainly it was the drums. Tim and I had these matching motorcycles, and we liked to travel around. As long as school wasn't a problem, we were gone. We was on those bikes and we were gone. We took trips everywhere. And it seemed like motorcycles were a part of who we were. Because later on, Tim ended up buying a Triumph motorcycle, and it was a lot bigger than our 350 Hondas we had. And, well, I seen that. Well, right now, I have a 650 Triumph myself. And I always thought about Tim and the things that we did. One day, I found a little 160 Dream Honda, and it was what Tim started out on. I bought it, stuck it in my storage building. I said, one of these days, I'm going to put it together and give it to Tim. That day never happened, but it was the kind of things that happened between me and Tim. Tim would do something for me that I didn't expect, and I would try to do things likewise for Tim. that Tim and I were pretty close all the way to high school. And then after high school, I got married and I moved on. And he was working by then, but we did spend a lot of time together. Wonderful memories. Memories I'll always cherish.
Hi, I'm Don, Tim's oldest brother. I'm about 10 years older than Tim. So when he came along, I have memories of it, and our parents had been trying for 6 years to have another child after I and my sister Sue had been born. When Tim was born, he was premature, only about 4 pounds, and he was in an incubator for about a week before we could bring him home. So we think he had some medical issues, even from a young age. Then, at the age of 19 months old, when Jim was, I guess you would have been about, well, you were under 1 year, about 9 or 10 months old. We were visiting Lake Schaefer in northern Indiana. It's where our grandparents had a cottage, and we went every weekend during the summer months. And our parents would go to Lakewood Marina to get groceries, and the whole family went along. Our mother was still carrying Jim. He was too young to walk, but Tim was running around everywhere, and somehow or other we lost track of Tim, and he fell off the dock in the marina, and it took us several minutes before we found him floating in the water. And fortunately, there were people there who knew CPR, or what kind of resuscitation techniques were in use at that time. And they were able to know that he was still alive and rushed him to the hospital in Logansport, which was, I think, 30 or 40 miles away. And the next day, on the front page of the Logansport newspaper was an article about Tim being saved. And that was his most exciting event in the first 2 years. So, by the time Tim and Jim were going to school, I was already leaving home to go in the service and go to college. And so I don't know a whole lot about his activities during that time. But after I got to graduate school, I was living at home, and Tim had the bedroom next to mine. And one of the things during that period that I remember, of course, was his working on his rock band and playing In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida late into the night. But it was all good. Anyway, I know Tim appreciated all the friendships that he found here in this community, and our family is deeply appreciative of it. Thank you very much.
Steve. I'm the youngest of the family, Tim's youngest brother. Growing up, I didn't know a lot about his younger days, obviously. So most of my memories are actually when he was older. But I do remember quite fondly growing up. You know, he was always competitive, I'd say. My mom would make cookies and we'd see who could eat the most. And a lot of it revolved around how much milk we had. So, but it was always that way growing up. We were always playing games, Monopoly. We'd get together and rolling the dice, going around, and it seems like we never finished the game because one of us would throw the board. But we had a lot of fun growing up. But later in life, after that, after Tim left and the house, and I was still in school, and then I went off my way to Purdue, and I went to college and into the Navy, and then it was actually quite a few years. I didn't see much of Tim until probably in the 1990s. And by that time, we both liked to travel a lot. And so it seemed like every time I saw Tim, we'd take a road trip somewhere. And we had some fond memories. One of our favorite ones was to go down and see Mom and Dad down in Florida. And one time we were driving down, and we're through the middle of the night, 3 o'clock in the morning is my time to drive. And so I need to wake up. And so my brother pulled off this exit, and there was we saw on the map, a little road goes into town like this and comes back out the next exit. So I get out of the car and I'm starting to run down the road, and Tim's following me in my car, and next thing you know, police officer's following him. Wondering what's going on. And so at the end, I jumped in the car and we went on. So we did all kinds of crazy things like that. Also, we took a lot of trips and did a lot of hiking together back in 2003. I know this is just before our mother died. We took a trip around the Sierras. We were going to climb Mount Whitney, and we first went camping along the way a few times. And we got there, we camped overnight, and we got up at 3 o'clock in the morning, early like everybody would go if you want to make it to the top in one day. And we got up about 12,000 foot, and then they had this section, they call it the 99 switchbacks. It just goes like this forever, straight up. And unfortunately, Tim, he was having problems breathing up there, and he had to go back. But I went to the top and ran back down, got down there about the time. Then they had. So, but the highlight of that trip was seeing all the doors torn off the cars by bears, and the people left food in there. So, yeah, I will really miss all those trips and stuff. I tried to come out and visit Tim whenever I could. I came out 2 years ago, and last year he came back and visited me, and that was really the last time I got to see my brother at that point. So, yeah, I'll always cherish all those trips and memories. So, thank you.
Please please turn to number 15 in the gray hymnal. And let's sing the first, second, and first verse again of The Long Wild Bird. Stand, if you're willing and able, and let's sing together.
Of cattails are bursting and floating away over the blue shoulders of the ponds. And every pond, no matter what its name is nameless now. Every year, everything I have ever learned in my lifetime leads back to this. The fires and the black river of loss, whose other side is salvation, whose meaning none of us will ever know. To live in this world, you must be able to do three things. To love what is mortal, to hold it against your bones, knowing your own life depends on it. And when the time comes, to let it go, to let it go.
We're going to call up here a few friends of Tim's who we're going to start with Phil Hawthorne, who will read something from a childhood friend who was unable to be here. Those folks are going to come up and share for a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and then we'll have a time where you can come up and share too if you would like. We're going to start with Phil. Thank you, Phil. And then Jim and Roy, you can come on up here.
These are the words from Alan Henson, author from Anderson, Indiana. In 1959, I started kindergarten at Westvale School in Anderson, Indiana. The cheerful red-headed kid with a face full of freckles came up to me during recess, put his arm around my neck and said, "You and me are going to be best friends." Well, I guess Tim must have recognized me from a past life because we have been best friends since. We went to the same schools with only a brief separation in the 8th grade. But after we graduated, we parted ways while both pursued our individual careers. We reconnected many years later by way of the internet and spent a lot of time contemplating the meaning of life and other things. I have so many stories of our adventures growing up, but they will have to wait for another time. Just let me say that I have never known a kinder soul or a person with a bigger heart.
Amen.
I want to name that when Phil began speaking, the back door opened. Elijah? I don't know. My name is Karen Araujo. I'm one of the many people who loved Tim dearly. We've heard the terms Jesus freaks. We've talked about Inagata de Vita. And you may hear a few other words and things that you don't usually hear in a church sanctuary and a congregation, but that's okay. Including kick-ass. Look forward to hearing kick-ass another couple more times. So now Jim and Roy, and then Frank and Andra, if you could come be standing by. Thank you.
Karen, I thought you would give us a little more of an introduction there. As being two.
Oh, I will. Okay.
All right, we're going there. These two gentlemen are part of a group, AKA the Friday Coffee Commie Committee.
Yeah, Tim really organized the Coffee Commie Committee. There was a group of about 5 or 6 of us, and the group dwindled, and Roy and myself were the sole last remaining members of the Commie Committee. I remember Tim there. I've got a vision. If you see that picture out in the lobby on the memory table, that is Tim with a cup of coffee in the sun. I took that picture. It was a rare moment when Tim was quiet and listening. I think Roy was speaking at the time. Roy and I still go for coffee on Friday at Coffee Mia at the local coffee shop in Marina, and still drink our non-corporate coffee there, thinking of Tim. Our wives have now joined us on Fridays to console our grief at the loss of Tim. That's been nice. On the first Friday following Tim's death, there was the old group got together, and it was very good. Karen joined us once again. Natalie, I saw her here. I think she's still at Delgado now. I'm not sure. Might have to. Also, there's Frank Landlord. I thought he was going to be here.
He is here.
He is? Okay. He was a member of the Commie Committee. I didn't know that was our title.
The revolution.
The revolution, yeah, it was, yeah. This last Friday, Roy and I were talking to the proprietor, Horace, and he wanted to pass on some words about Tim, and so I will do that. He said about Tim, He was a pain in the butt. But we loved him. Or we loved him.
He emphasized,
We
loved it.
We, okay. I guess suggesting it was our defect. I don't know. That pretty much sums up our relationship. I wouldn't use such language myself, but Horace is Sicilian, so it's permitted. And I'm only repeating what he said. You know, I remember Tim in our meetings and our conversations. He would dominate the conversation quite often. And Roy pointed out that I would occasionally interject a small little point, and he would chastise me for interrupting. When he wasn't talking, he was ignoring us, I think. He was on his phone, gazing at pictures of Megan, gazing wistfully at pictures of Megan, and researching solutions to his transportation and housing needs. Up in, people have alluded to this, Northern California, in the First Nation communities, of Happy Camp. Well, I saw those on the screen, of Happy Camp and Klamath. And we drove around looking at places in Klamath and Happy Camp that he had looked at as possibilities for relocation. I recall Tim also engaged in conversation. He would be describing societal ills, and of course he would invite Roy and myself and anyone else that would listen to chime in and agree with him. And he would ask, and this is out there highlighted on the memory board, after describing the societal, he would say, "So what are you doing about it?" And it was never quite enough in Tim's mind. And we had to hear this time and again until Roy finally responded to him and said, "So Tim, what are you doing?" Well, that's my statement.
I was campaigning again for either Jane Parker or Bruce Delgado, or for one of the many issues that come up each year in the city of Marina. And I was knocking on doors, and I had a spiel. And I knocked on Tim's door. And I had seen him before, but didn't know who he was. And I felt a kinsman, but he was asking questions, and he was probing. And I was doing my best to answer them. And then he would comment. And one thing led to another, and he invited me in. Now that's a no-no. When you're out campaigning, you want to get to every single door you possibly can. I couldn't help myself. And when I got in, here was a room full of books, everywhere, shelves of books. Some of which I had read, but most of which I had not read and were definitely on my list to read. And we talked about many things during that hour or so we were together. Native Americans, American Indians, First Nation. He, I think, already at that point identified himself as a social anarchist. Commie committee? Anarchist was pretty strong for me. Anyway, that was my first meeting with Tim.
I really don't, I don't remember my first meeting of Tim, but I certainly was in political events and the like. But I first got to know him fairly well when we were campaigning for a slate of progressive candidates in Marina. And then later, we were both on a committee, Citizens for Sustainable Marina, C4SM. And I guess I had been looking for someone to race a biking buddy of mine who, well, for whatever, was no longer with us. And Tim and I took up hiking. And we hiked often at Garland Ranch and Eastern Corridor. I remember going up a hill at one time, and Tim was a strong hiker, as I recall, when we first started out. And after a while, I was kind of leaving him in the dust, and I'm thinking to myself, I mean, am I getting that much stronger of a hiker? And no, Tim was getting weaker, in fact. And you know, through his health issues, I joined him in going to hospital or to doctor's visits. I joined him going up to Stanford. Roy and I both were there when he had his heart operation. Brought him home together. But beyond his health issues, I just remember Tim as a big dreamer. There was his fascination with the tiny house. And he wanted to own and restore a GMC motorhome. You know, one of those 70s vintage ones, maybe put a Tesla engine or other enhancements that he would describe to me, and I'd just say, you know, Tim, come on. You could buy a nice used motorhome and it'd be a lot easier, less trouble, but no. Another thing for him was a GMC or Chevrolet van, four-wheel drive, maybe hiked up, you know, a high water vehicle so we could go rescue people in floods, maybe. I don't know. He wanted to buy a tract of land up north in Karuk territory or somewhere. We went through the towns of Klamath and Happy Camp, which I saw on the map here. And he did show me, I think I mentioned this before, I'm repeating myself, we visited several properties he was thinking of buying. The trip up north, primarily owing to the lack of funds, we were sleeping in Tim's tent and on the ground, and it started to rain, and it was sort of unpleasant, and things got a little contentious. But it wasn't until, you know, I was driving, and Tim didn't care for my driving. I think I'm a perfectly good driver. He didn't like it. So I was relegated to navigator. I failed in Tim's estimation as a navigator. He got so disgusted with me, he turned around and started heading home. And, you know, he did think the better of it, and we continued on the trip. Yeah, we had our difficulties, but through it all, you know, we remained best friends.
And just quickly, last summer, Tim, as many of you know, took a trip across country all the way to Indiana, finally. And my daughter and my grandkids, our daughter and grandkids, have to be careful with them, live in Wisconsin. And Tim was good enough to stop over, and he stayed for several days. We had a wonderful time together, and he regaled us of his adventures coming across Wyoming, maybe part of Montana, South Dakota. And so we had a great time there. And then he went on to Indiana to be with you. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you. Audra and Frank will come up now. I don't see Catherine here. So you can mention about the Outer Bank. She was going to mention about the Outer Bank. And then after Audra, then after Alan, and then Bruce.
Good afternoon, everyone. I don't take a lot of mics. I think you guys know I am completely camera shy, and don't do a lot of this. But for Tim, I don't know that I could sit in my chair and not. I'm not. Stand here in front of all of you today. I have something that I'm going to read from Frank Lander's The Green Party, and then I have my own statement that I will be reading. I need glasses because I can't see. And this is going to start with Frank Lambert and the Green Party, of which I'm also part of. Hearing about Tim Wilson's premature death was certainly a sad day for those of us who knew him. And he was usually bubbling with energy and his profound concern for things which Tim was passionately involved in, which reflected in his involvement in the Green Party of California. Tim was an advocate for a cleaner environment, sustainable energy, conservation of Mother Nature's natural resources, an anti-war and anti-aggression fighter, and definitely a pro-peace advocate. Tim was involved with and continually honing his skills and knowledge in public banking initiatives, bartering systems for goods and services, public ownership of what used to be called the commons, and a fighter for human rights and social justice for all. Most of this year, Tim talked about relocating near the California-Oregon border, close to an Indian reservation and a house nearby that he was interested in purchasing. Affordable at his income level, he talked about, I am an emotional person. You know I'm going to miss Tim. Yeah. He talked about refreshing his software engineering skills and working out of his home in the high-tech industry had he lived to fulfill his dream. Brother Tim was a Monterey County Council member of the Green Party for a time and an alternative delegate to the State General Assembly as well. I remember taking Tim to an Arizmendi? How do you say this word? Arizmendi Bakery? An Arizmendi Bakery in Emeryville. I don't know what that is, somebody can fill me in.
Arizmendi is there's 6 or 7 of them up in the San Francisco Bay Area, and they're all employee-owned. Yeah. Arizmendi, there was a Catholic priest in, I forget what, Argentina in the 50s that advocated employee-owned businesses. And they're very successful. It's a bakery, they've got pizza there, coffee. My wife and I, when we go up to the San Francisco Bay Area, we purchased a lot of products up there. I took Tim up there once, coming back from the General Assembly from the Green Party, because we were delegates to the state party, and I said, Tim, no bosses, no CEOs, all worker-owned. And that was right up his alley. I wanted to open up a bakery like that in Marina.
Maybe we should get together and honor him and try to do that. Let's see. Tim Wilson was never at a loss for ideas and innovations were which were progressive in nature for the good of society and Mother Earth. We didn't always see things the same way, and on occasion locked horns and argued, but in the end shook hands and remained friends. May his soul rest in peace in the cosmos, which it probably will, as Tim was kind to all and literally wouldn't harm a fly. We miss you, Tim.
Thank you, Frank.
How are you?
Now you.
Yeah.
Now you.
I don't know how much time we have. I'm gonna try and... Okay, so I'm gonna go, I could talk forever. Yeah, I really could. But I won't. I'm gonna read this. No, I will. Timothy, so I don't know, I post on Facebook. I used to post more than I do now, and I'll probably go back to posting again. But Timothy found me through the Green Party page, and basically liked my post enough that he decided that he would come out and find me at the farmers market where I was going back and forth between the Measure Z campaign and Bruce Delgado's table. And he said, hey, and came up. He said, aren't you Audra? I'm like, yeah, I'm Audra. He says, good, I'm here to see you. I'm like, this Bruce, obviously he's there for him. And, no, he was there for me. What he told me was that there was a Green Party County Council meeting coming up, and that he liked my post and liked what I had to say, and would like for me to come and sit in on a meeting with the Green Party County Council. And I did that. It was, it was my Timothy, let's see, so there's bylaws and stuff that needed to be handled, and Timothy wasn't very quiet about its need, and that was my introduction. And oh boy, did I make a mistake? And no, I absolutely did not. So I wrote this. The Facebook, I don't know how many of you have a Facebook, but Facebook likes to share Facebook memories with people, whether you're ready to see something that you posted a while ago or not. Here it pops up, and yes. So not too many days ago was our 2-year friendiversary, and Facebook calls it friendiversary, and I boo-hooed and cried and didn't realize, oh wow, it's only been 2 years. Like, whoa, he was so, his heart, his hugs. How many of you had a Timothy hug?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh.
All right.
Okay, so yes, I'm going to read this and then I'm going to sit down. So I wrote to him in that friendiversary post. I said, my dear, sweet, wonderful, beautiful, and kind-hearted friend, I'm so sad you are no longer available for breakfast at Tommy's. He would invite us, we would eat, talk politics, and get kind of loud in Tommy's. It was great. I'm writing through tears and having a hard time pulling it together. I still don't want this to be true, and I'm not ready to miss you like this. And shortly after I started posting the Monterey County Green Party, you just heard this story, but I'm going to read it again. Shortly after I started posting on the Monterey County Green Party Facebook page, you went out of your way to find me at the Farmers Market Marina to invite me to the Monterey County Green Party County Council meeting at the Peace and Justice Center. And I am forever grateful that you did. Through you, it seems, I have met my tribe. Thank you, dearest one. I am having the hardest time articulating the positive impact that you've had on my life through these tears. Beautiful Timothy Wilson, but I think you know, wherever you are, that I will forever love you and forever cherish our political discussions over breakfast at Tommy's. Hugs. P.S. He really did make 2 years feel like 10.
Alan Hoffa wears many hats in the community. Served on councils, chair of the Democratic Central Committee, and was one of the warriors with Occupy.
I need to change tape. Can I have...
Sure, just keep going, we'll miss it, Herbert. Thank you for what you're doing. If we don't get it, that's cool. Alan Hoffa, and then next, Bruce Delgado, followed by Susan, who's standing in for Catherine.
So as most of you probably know, Tim was, right from the very beginning, active in Occupy Monterey. He came to all of our meetings, and actually long after most people stopped coming, every first Saturday at 10 a.m., Tim was still there at City Hall for our meetings. The one memory I'd like that for me stands out most strongly about Tim, and really captures what many of you have said about his passion, but also about his cantankerous spirit, was his dream of a community bank. I would have to say that at almost every meeting we had, he talked about how we needed to create our own community bank. And it actually is a great idea. It's a beautiful idea. We all love that idea, and we'd say, okay, Tim, how are you going to do it? We'll help you. But he was very passionate about that. He was very passionate about sustainability. And as others have said, he truly lived his principles. I remember seeing Tim biking around town. You know, he always tried to truly live his ideas and principles. He was at every protest. He was always there. He was there for the hospitality workers at La Playa and Pine Inn. He was there for immigrants. He was there for any group that was disenfranchised or being mistreated in some way. And I'll just close with this thought. I don't think the normal saying, rest in peace, really works for Tim. I think live on in agitation, live on in passion, and live on fighting. And wherever you are, I know you're probably holding a picket sign and making your voice heard.
Yes, thank you so much. Mayor Bruce Delgado of Marina, followed by Susan. If you could wait up here, Susan, she'll be standing in for Catherine.
Hi, everybody. Thank you to Tim's family for being here today. I learned a lot about Tim that I didn't know. And thanks to everyone who's put this together. It's been a really good memorial for me to be part of. And Roy, now I know why the vote count was a little low that year. A lot of people have said things, so I'm going to be a little more brief. So, twilson@mva.net was an easy email address for me to remember by heart because Tim was involved with copious email over the years. Earth Day committee meetings at the Watershed Institute, working on the plastic bag ban for Citizens for Sustainable Marina, advocating for a small mart revolution to localize our economy instead of having a Walmart economy, volunteering to load the stage for Labor Day parades or to load tables and chairs on Saturday at 7 a.m. for Marina Earth Day festivals. Tim, as you all know, was always there to help. When he was asked, he was there. He also volunteered, as has been mentioned, walking door to door for multiple Marina election campaigns, and he would come back to the campaign office with the most unusual stories, such as talking for 45 minutes to a voter about capitalism. I often wondered if he remembered to ask the voter to vote. He probably didn't. On a personal level, Tim was usually good for long conversations when visiting our home or Coffee Mia and pointing out how, as mayor, I wasn't doing enough for affordable housing or the homeless or other social needs. And of course, he was right, but it was hard for me to hear because I was feeling overextended as it was. And in this way, Tim was like Darby Worth, always a male version of Darby Worth, always pushing for a little more. And that was one of the beauties of Tim, that he was always pushing the rest of us to do a little more. We need more thinkers like Tim, and I'll close with Tim's email tagline, which many of you have seen probably. Quote, "You never change things by fighting the existing reality. To change something, build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete," unquote. R. Buckminster Fuller. That was Tim in a nutshell. He had a big heart, and he thought big.
Thank you very much. Susan, if you would please come up. And there are four more after Susan. Ms. McCarthy's going to read something, then Carrie Ann.
Hello, my name is Susan Salo, and I ran into Catherine Crockett just before we began here, and she said she unfortunately had double booked, so she couldn't attend. She's really sorry. But she gave me a statement that she'd like you all to hear. Catherine is the president of the Monterey Peace and Justice Center and Sustainable Seaside. She works so hard, she's probably president or a member of lots of other organizations, I don't know. But this, it's called Remembering Tim Wilson by Catherine Crockett, September 16th, 2018. I moved to the Monterey area in 1998 to take a job in Salinas working in information technology. As mergers and acquisitions became the prevailing business strategy in corporate America, the demands on the technology staff increased and my 40-hour week excuse me, became a 60-hour week. At some point, I came to the realization that my job had become all-consuming to the point that I felt completely disconnected from the community I lived in. That's when I got involved with a group of concerned local citizens working to make the city of Seaside a more resilient and sustainable community in the face of environmental challenges. Sustainable Seaside met regularly and held events at the Peace and Justice Center in Seaside, so by 2010, the Peace Center had become my second home, and that's where I met Tim Wilson. Some of you maybe remember Dean Gwynn, who managed the Peace Center until 2015. She recruited me as the tech support person for the Peace Center, and she arranged for me to meet Tim, who had initially set up the center's computer system. Tim and I met several Saturday afternoons at the center until we had updated the operating system, applied malware, and antivirus software, and other long overdue maintenance at the center. Having both worked in IT since its early days, we both shared stories about what made it both bearable and unbearable. We also discovered that we shared common perspectives around politics, the environment, and social justice. Tim was one of the many welcoming members of the local peace and justice community who made me feel like I was in the right place, contributing in some small way to the work others were already doing to make a better world. 2 years later, I had the pleasure of teaming up with Tim again. It was in August of 2012 when a group of 12 people came together with the goal of creating a time bank in Monterey County. Tim and I were part of that organizing group, and by November of the same year, our bank was launched. If you're not familiar with time banking, it's an alternative economy based on units of time, not dollars. Unlike the money economy, time banking values all hours equally. 1 hour of time equals 1 time credit, whether you're a surgeon or an unemployed single mother. Time banking recognizes that everyone, even those defined as disadvantaged or vulnerable, has something worthwhile to contribute. Tim wholeheartedly believed in this kind of gift economy, where relationships are forged through giving and receiving. He not only helped organize the time bank, he was one of its most active members. He helped with computer assistance and advice, moving, mowing, trimming, weeding, leaf raking, lifting, and pet sitting. By the way, you can see several of the pets he sat for out there near the entrance. Here's one of the services he posted in the time bank. Quote, "I offer loving and attentive care for your pets when you're away. Dog walking, feeding, and care for dogs, cats, rabbits, chickens, etc. I keep your best buddies company with play and loving attention." End quote. That's Tim, loving attention. Tim was a kind man with a loving heart. He was a visionary who had a clear vision of what makes a better world, and he was a dear friend. That's Catherine Crockett.
Thank you, Susan. Nibs, could you come on up and share that? And then Carrie Ann, followed by Martha. And then the final in this section will be Carol Collin.
I have a message from the Reverend John Burens, author, minister, and former president of the Unitarian Universalist Association. Tim was a kind, intelligent, and compassionate man whom I came to love. He was one of many victims of technological advance in our economy. He had learned to do tech at a certain level and then found that there were no longer any jobs at that level. He subsequently became functionally homeless. He would do almost anything to help others who shared his plight for whatever reason. When I met him, he was sharing living quarters in Monterey with another man who had worked in the tech industry. That situation was not sustainable, however, so when the position of sexton at this church, UCMP, became available, I hoped that Tim might be able to make a new start in that role. It may have been too much pressure on him. Death can come to any of us at any point in our lives. There is no need to attribute blame to Tim, his church community, or others. I suspect. Let us simply join in grieving and remembering a kind, intelligent man who was not helped and valued by a society that values only relentless competition and efficiency over human compassion. Tim knew better. So should we who remember him. Thank you.
Thank you. Carrie Ann? Here's where I'm going to say one of the phrases I told you you would hear again. There were many people who loved Tim. There was a particular little circle to which he referred as his kick-ass girlfriends. So Carrie Ann was one of his kick-ass girlfriends. I was one of his kick-ass girlfriends. Natalie, though Mary, was one of his kick-ass girlfriends. Megan, Tolbert, I don't know who else was in that crew, but it was with great affection for how brave and courageous he believed we were, and also that we really were loves. Didn't have to be romantic love to be really solid.
Absolutely.
That's it.
So I don't actually remember how I met Tim. It had to be something like 7 or 8 years ago. Probably at a UU gathering of some sort. But we quickly became good buddies, and I soon became one of the kick-ass girlfriends, which I still am very proud to be. We soon discovered that we both enjoyed being playful and, for better or for worse, encourage each other's more mischievous impulses. I was going to keep a lot of those to myself, but a few of you have mentioned a particular hot tub incident. I guess some of you know about that, so if you want to know more, I'll tell you more, but it was pretty fun. Suffice it to say that we had a lot of fun reveling in our moments of great immaturity. In the years that I've lived in this area, I've since moved to Minnesota, we would get together frequently. We would also revel in our great love of eating ginormous breakfasts together, and then we would hike it off in nature, which we both really appreciated and really found ourselves in. That was something that we shared, was our love of nature, and on those walks, that's when I got to know Tim really well, and he got to know me, and we would spend most of that time, we hiked a lot, but we would often sit down and we would start discussing our dreams and our plans and our hopes for this planet. And we would also discuss things like our frustrations and our concerns and the regrets in our own lives. It was really good to have that confidant in my life. He was a man of complexity, depth, and passion, and his views on political and social and environmental justice were unwavering. Those who shared his views or were able to show understanding of what he passionately stood for got to see the depths of this beautiful dreamer's compassionate soul. And if you disagreed with him, you were likely to get an earful of his fierce inner warrior coming out to challenge you and fight against his perceptions of injustice. And you'd bump up with Grumpy Tim. And God, I loved both. I loved all aspects of Tim because that just was, that complexity, I just love it. And I love weird people. I mean, Tim allowed himself to be very open and very vulnerable with people that he trusted and was close to, and I am honored to have been one of those people that he was close to. Like many of us, he had regrets in his life, and he would share them with me. One of the things that he did regret was not having a family. He spent a lot of time with me and my family and my young daughter. And there were times when I was attending to my daughter, and he'd be at my home, and I'd turn around and he would have tears in his eyes. And he would just tell me about how touched he was to watch me parent and show the love to my own daughter, because that was something that he knew he wasn't going to have, and that he had possibly had opportunities to experience, but other passions pulled him. So he would ponder what could have been for himself, but then also remember himself again about the things that he was able to do because maybe because he didn't have a family. But Tim does have a family in this area. He created family wherever he went, and he's got a giant family in this community. And no one I know in this world could be more trusted with the care of our four-legged family members. If ever he was hesitant at all to show affection to any human being, he certainly did not hold back when it came to taking care of our animals. I trusted him so much with my own animals, and he was gentle and playful, and he took great joy in connecting with the animals that he took care of. He always used to say that my dog that I have now, Serafina, was the reincarnation of his former dog, Lady. And Serafina's still alive, so if Lady is not the reincarnation, I keep picturing Tim up in the heavens throwing squeaky toys, for Lady, and just loving her and just being so glad to be reunited with her. Tim wanted so much to make a difference in this world, and I don't think he knows that he did. He made a huge difference. All of us being here right now, that's testament to the fact that he made such a big difference. He had so much love in his heart, and he often went so out of his way to be there for people in his community. And his commitment and involvement in all of the organizations that he was in, and his commitment and involvement in all the relationships that he was in, is just truly inspirational to me. I believe that everything that Tim has done has been set into motion. And whatever he didn't finish on this earth will be finished in one way or another, because we all experience the ripple effect as Tim ripples through all of us. Thank you, Tim. Wherever you are, however you are, I love you so much. And I just want to read a Native American poem that made me think of him, as he was very connected to the earth and to the people in his life. Hold on to what is good, even if it is a handful of earth. Hold on to what you believe, even when it is a tree that stands by itself. Hold on to what you must do, even when it is a long way from here. Hold on even when it's easier to let go. And hold on to my hand even when I have gone away from you. Martha, and then Carol, and then we'll hear another poem from Kate.
Thank you, Karen, and thank you for this wonderful chance to say a few words about someone who is important in an odd way for me. I met Tim through the church, as many of us did, as the person who showed up, didn't know him, and he was always helping to do something. And I recognize this because when I'm in a strange place, I like having a way to know that I have a part in what's going on, and I try to help. So I saw this and immediately gravitated to someone who shared something that I felt as well. We started to talk, and I got to know a little bit more about him, and I was intrigued with his infinite curiosity about the world, because he always had a lot of opinions, but he always was curious about what went beyond them, and his continued search for authentic knowledge and communication and authentic connection really resonated with me and inspired me. I thought that was a wonderful thing. And we became better friends through talking about all the different things that happen in the world, and the personal, and the way that intersects with the political, and how do we be authentic people walking the talk and living our lives, which, as you all know, was an incredible passion of his. And he was so energetic about it, I always made me feel lazy for all the things I didn't do, which I'm sure is very healthy. And then we became involved in the world of animals, and people have described what Tim does as pet sitting. For me, that's not what happened. Tim was generous with his opinions. And many times, talking to him felt kind of like standing on the receiving end of a fire hose. And I've heard other reminiscences that reflect this, that talk about how you, as a person, having a deep conversation with Tim felt. I saw something entirely different in his relationship with animals. I'm involved with animals because of the expanse that brings you about connection. It teaches you how different ways connect, how languages work, how communication works. It's more than simply having a pet in the house to communicate when I come home. And so I'm not an easy person to pet sit for, because I have this complex relationship with my animals, which includes one that doesn't care for men or visitors much. Doesn't trust them. This dog doesn't trust anybody when they come through the door, because he's afraid that he should be in charge, and he doesn't think that they're going to be a good visitor. So I have trouble finding a pet sitter, so Tim said he would give it a shot. And he came and turned into a different person, because he was so attentive to the needs and processing around this animal that he was quiet. He was observing for any clue on how to make that work. The dog bit him, first time he met him, bit him in the leg. I'm going, well, that's not going to work. And Tim's going, no, I understand. He just was worried. I looked at him and moved at him, and no, not his fault. I'm going, that's different. So when we left the animals with him for the first time, we left a picture of our cat, because he had never seen the cat. No house sitter ever sees our cat. So if you see this cat, this is the cat. You know, it's not some strange cat. Here, this is the one. So 2 days later, we're on our vacation, and we get a picture of Tim, cat on his shoulder, because there's nothing he didn't like a challenge. And to get through to this animal was something that he did, as he did with everything. He didn't leave anything. He put it all out. He left it, nothing's left on the table. That person lived his life to the max. And what he could put out into the world, he put out. And it doesn't surprise me that his last illness was short, because he was an intense person who did everything at 110% from his heart all the way through. And that inspired me when he was alive, and it inspires me now, and it always will. And I want to know that all of you who share it, we can go forward saying that if there was one thing said today, I know he's really enjoying it. Someone compared him to Darby. It was that kind of competition. How can I be a force for good? And admiring those who were, generously observing those who fell short, helping them on their way. And like I say, not keeping anything back. Put it all out there, leave it on the table. And he may be gone in some ways, but in other ways he never will be.
Thank you, Martha. As Carol comes up, and anyone that wants to give a hand there, I will share that we have planned to be together about an hour and a half, hour 45 if people want to share more here. Also know that there is a quiet area out this door through the narthex on the right. So there's a reception following hosted by the Caring Network. You're welcome to stay. And you can sit and share in that area if you need some quiet time, or you want to tell a story and you don't want to come up here and do that. In a couple of minutes we'll have to do that. So just know that that's open to you. Carol, call.
I'm Carol Collins. I wear a plethora of hats in this place. One of which is being part of something called the Caring Network. And Tim was someone who was a person I could call on for absolutely anything if the Caring Network needed it. He'd do yard work, he'd do cleanup, he'd drive people. He drove one person to Phoenix, Arizona when he needed to be reunited with his cat. And then I think he went up and visited another couple who was not able to be here today. He would help to pack up and restore 2 rooms of my house. When I got the house painted, I'm not really good at packing and lugging boxes any longer. When I bought a new rug, it came with a thick, nasty pad that wouldn't lie flat. And so I called him, and he and my neighbor Ivy stalked around all over the pad and began ballroom dancing on it to see if they could get the thing to lie flat. When Barbara G., who was a member here, became very ill, and her husband was in the hospital for surgery, she was not able to drive. So they hired Tim to drive her around. For those of you who knew Barbara, she was very picky, but she absolutely adored Tim, especially the day when Bill took a bit of a turn for the worst, and she phoned Tim and said, I need to go to the hospital right now. And he was down at Red's Donuts, so he bought a little bag of donuts and brought it to her and took her up there. He always did things like that. Some of the pictures I've seen on the slides show the Thanksgiving dinners we had at the G's home. We had 22 of them before we finally got too old to do it any longer. He never missed one. He never missed my holiday party. He one time told me when I got sick, I thought maybe I couldn't have it, but you have to have it. That's my Christmas. He would never take payment for anything I had him do, and so I'd bake him cookies. You'll find a big platter of snickerdoodles out there. Jim told me that anything with cinnamon and sugar was his favorite, and these are wonderful buttery cinnamon sugar bombs. They were one of his absolute favorite things, that and coffee. I'd hand him the cookies, and he'd give me that wonderful crinkly-eyed grin and get into them. I trusted him completely. One time when I was traveling for an extended period, he came in and checked on my houseplants and took my car around. And he stayed in the homes of many people who are here in this room and took care of their pets. He was a good friend. He had a temper, but he had a passion that took the world by storm. Rest in peace and power. Your village misses you.
Kate. During the reception, you'll see a laptop out there with a video that Carrie Ann brought. And Carol talked about his crinkly eyes and his laugh, and you'll hear and see that in that video if you take time to watch it. It's wonderful and delight. Or she'll do the impression. She does a good impression of his laugh for you. And the slideshow will resume when we're done. If you'd like to bring your goodies in here and watch that all the way through, whatever you need to do, it's all welcome.
Thank you all for these wonderful stories. And one of the resounding themes was going back to nature and gaining energy for all of the good things that you wanted to do, and finding peace in nature. So here's a poem that many of you will know by Wendell Berry, The Peace of Wild Things. When despair for the world grows in me and I wake in the night at the least sound in fear of what my life and my children's lives may be, I go and lie down where the wood drake rests in his beauty on the water and the great heron feeds. I come into the peace of wild things who do not tax their lives with forethought of grief. I come into the presence of still water, and I feel above me the day-blind stars waiting with their light. For a time, I rest in the grace of the world and am free.
Well, we could end things now. We could do some sharing, looking at some faces. I see some folks who may want to share. They may want to do it in the lounge down the way. If you do want to share to the gathered body right now, please just kind of give a little wave and then please walk up here so we have an idea, and folks can, it may be just one or two folks, it may be 3 or 4. That'll help people get an idea of how much more time we're going to be here together in this way. And then we'll sing together, and we'll end our time. So come on up here, Timothy.
I don't have any prepared statements. My name's Timothy Barrett. What I have are a collection of thoughts, and I've learned some things about Tim that I didn't know here today. And we've heard a lot about the concept of time banking, and when I look out at all of you, and I hear all of our comments and memories, it strikes me that we, all of us here, are the bank, and we have that deposit to carry forward. And when I think of all of us as being planks in a big house, and Tim is one of the nails that's holding that house together. And I like to carry that thought forward. I met Tim during Occupy. He and I were together on the front lines of Occupy Monterey. And he and I were some of the first to establish a homeless camp at Veterans Park. And I've heard Tim described as gruff and cantankerous, and I've heard him described as loving and kind. And I want to share an anecdote about seeing Tim as both those things at the same time. Both cantankerous and loving and kind. And so at this encampment, people who were unhoused or had an affiliation with the need for more housing and more equanimity in our society began gathering there. And quite a few people came, and some people were very unsettled in their lives and needed a place to stay. And we would have these campfires. And one night, Tim was engaged in a very vocal, high-energy argument with a couple of people there that were challenged. They had demons. And they were engaged in just a very confrontational, heated discussion. And I pulled Tim aside and I said, Tim, why are you arguing with them? Why are you trying to tell them what to do? And what he told me was that you never know when what you say to somebody is going to have meaning in their lives. And I think that's where we're going to find Tim. He's going to have meaning in all of our lives and in other people's lives in the future, and that will bear seeds.
Susan?
I just wanted to say something brief about Tim. You know, I would say he was a cool guy. I met him at an Hour Bank potluck about 8 years ago, And I found out he helps with gardening and I needed to do weeding. So he came to my house and we weeded side by side. And he said, you know, Susan, I just like helping people out and doing something different. And then, you know, with our bank, you need to declare the hours, either the person who gets the service or the person who does the service. So he would do it a couple of times and then he just stopped doing it and I couldn't get him to report his hours. He said, I'm just going to do this for you as a friend. And he did many things for me as a friend, many things, including taking care of my kitty cats. He helped me with cabinet refinishing. He did, you know, he was just a very dear friend that way, very, always helpful. Everybody says that. You know, I didn't see much of his cantankerous side. Perhaps I was lucky, I don't know. And another thing is, he was really easy to please. You know, when he would take care of my cats, I said, well, Tim, what would you like in exchange? And he said, oh, cookies. And so he got cookies. I gave him other things too, but he got cookies for sure. In fact, the night before he died, I brought cookies to the hospital to give to him. But you know what? They wouldn't let me bring them in, unfortunately. He was just a very generous guy, a good friend, and so easy to talk with. We would sit and talk and talk and talk. Very dear person. I'll miss him. I do miss him. But, you know, I am very glad he's up there at the Rainbow Bridge with his animals because I've got a couple of kitty cats that he used to care for that are up there too. So, you know, we're having a good time.
Thank you. And there's more to be said. In your teal hymnal, we're going to sing a song, 1064. And while you're getting those, I want to share something with you before we stand and sing together. It's 1064 in the teal hymnal. The last Sunday that he was at church, our standing date was on Sundays. If we were going to be somewhere else or not in the area, we would check in with one another. So I was at a kombucha festival in Santa Cruz, and he was going to come on over there to Santa Cruz on that Sunday after church. And I called him to correct my directions, and he said that he was feeling tired. And this is the Sunday before he passed. He was feeling tired, and he didn't think he was going to go over to Santa Cruz. And I was disappointed I had missed church. And I said, well, how was church today? I said, oh, it was just great. Ken Peterson, who's with us here today, and Mary Kay Hamilton were in the pulpit. And it was on, he said, it was great. It was exactly what I needed. And it was a sermon on sustainability, following sustainable practices in our personal and professional lives does more than support the seventh principle of our respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. It also makes sound economic sense and can have a transformational power in the global marketplace, turning our individual actions into a force for social change. So he heard that in the pulpit from a dear friend whom he admired greatly. And he added, and also, we sang a song that I love, that always brings a tear to my eye. And we sang this, among other songs, to him when he was in the hospital. And it's Blue Boat Home. And we're going to sing that together now. Please rise as you're willing and able and sing 1064, Blue Boat Home. For Tim, live on, brother.
invite you to remain standing and reach out, take the hand of someone close by if you're comfortable doing so for our closing words. So let us remember Tim in the living of our lives, in our rejoicing and our feasting, in our mourning and our crying, in our working and our playing. Let us speak truly and act justly, and having paused in loving and grateful remembrance, may we depart in peace and unafraid to face life. Amen. Please be seated for our postlude.